All right, guys, I need to stop everything and get this video out to you right now because the forecast has changed. And not in a small way, not in a we adjusted the timing by a couple of hours kind of way. I am talking about a significant, dramatic, and frankly alarming shift in what this storm is now expected to do over the next 48 to 72 hours. The models came in overnight, and what they are showing has completely rewritten the threat level for a large part of this country. If you have been following this storm over the past few days and you thought you had a handle on what was coming, you need to watch this video from start to finish. Because what we thought was going to be a manageable, severe weather event has just been upgraded into something that has the potential to be genuinely catastrophic. And let me be upfront with you about why this matters so much. In weather forecasting, we always talk about model uncertainty. We always talk about the cone of possibility, the confidence intervals, the wait and see approach, and that is all valid. But there are moments, rare moments, where the data stops being uncertain and starts screaming at you in one direction. This is one of those moments. The 12Z model runs that came in this morning, followed by the 18Z runs this afternoon, are in almost unanimous agreement. This storm has taken a big turn, and the turn it has taken is toward a scenario that is significantly more dangerous than what any of us were forecasting 24 hours ago. So let's get into exactly what changed, what it means for your area, and what you need to do about it right now. So let's start with the before and after picture here. 24 hours ago, the working forecast for this storm system had it tracking on a relatively northern path through the Central Plains. The expectation was for a fast-moving system that would clip through with a few hours of severe weather threat, mostly a hail and wind event, with a low-end tornado risk confined to a fairly narrow corridor. We were looking at a slight risk for most of the affected area with maybe a localized enhanced risk in one or two spots. Honestly, a manageable setup by springtime standards. That is not what we are looking at anymore. What happened overnight is that the upper-level trough, the engine that is driving this entire storm system, slowed down. And it did not just slow down a little bit. It stalled out significantly more than any of the models were predicting. And when an upper-level trough slows down and digs deeper into the atmosphere, it does two things. First, it allows the surface low-pressure system below it to intensify much more rapidly than expected. And second, it dramatically extends the amount of time that the warm, moist, unstable air ahead of it has to interact with the wind shear environment. More time, more instability, more shear. That is the recipe for a longer, more violent, and more widespread severe weather event. And that is exactly what we are now staring at. The surface low, which was expected to be somewhere around 1004 to 1006 millibars by tomorrow afternoon, is now being modeled to explosively deepen to somewhere around 992 to 994 millibars. That is a drop of roughly 10 to 12 millibars in under 24 hours. Meteorologists call that bombogenesis, or a bomb cyclone, a term usually reserved for winter storms, but the same process applies here. A rapidly deepening surface low creates much stronger pressure gradients, which means much stronger low-level winds, which means dramatically enhanced low-level wind shear, which means the tornado threat just jumped off the charts. We are no longer talking about an isolated tornado or two. We are now talking about a scenario where a significant tornado outbreak is on the table. Here's where things get really serious, and I want to be very specific with locations because this information could save lives. The shift in the storm track has moved the highest threat zone considerably to the south and east compared to what we were forecasting yesterday. The area that I was most concerned about 24 hours ago was central Kansas and southern Nebraska. That area still has a significant threat, but the new bullseye, the area of maximum risk, has now shifted down into northeastern Oklahoma, far northern Arkansas, southwestern Missouri, and southeastern Kansas. If you live in any of the following cities, you are now in the primary tornado threat zone for tomorrow afternoon and evening. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Joplin, Missouri, Fort Smith, Arkansas, Springfield, Missouri, Fayetteville and Rogers, Arkansas, Bartlesville, Oklahoma, Coffeyville and Independence, Kansas. And anywhere in between those locations, that entire corridor, stretching roughly from Tulsa northeast through Joplin and Springfield, is now the single most dangerous place in the country to be tomorrow afternoon. And here's the part that really concerns me. This is a heavily populated corridor. We are talking about metro areas. We are talking about suburbs. We are talking about dense residential neighborhoods sitting right in the path of what could be multiple significant long-track tornadoes tomorrow afternoon. The Tulsa metro area alone has over 1 million people. The Springfield metro adds another few hundred thousand. Joplin, which many of you remember from the devastating EF5 tornado in 2011, sits almost exactly in the center of the highest risk zone. And that alone sends a chill down my spine because the atmospheric setup for tomorrow afternoon in that exact area is beginning to look eerily similar to some of the most catastrophic severe weather days this region has ever seen. Now, I want to be careful here. I'm not telling you that tomorrow is definitely going to be 2011 Joplin. I am not telling you that any specific tornado will hit any specific city. Weather does not work that way. What I am telling you is that the environment tomorrow will be capable of producing that magnitude of event. The difference between a catastrophic tornado outbreak and a close call is often just a matter of a storm track shifting 10 or 20 miles in one direction or the other. But you cannot plan for the near miss. You have to plan for the worst case. And the worst case tomorrow, given what the models are showing, is severe. Let me break down the atmospheric setup for you in a way that makes clear exactly why the system has become such an outsized threat. Starting with moisture, the dew point values that are being modeled for the Tulsa and Joplin areas tomorrow afternoon are extraordinary for this time of year. We are talking about surface dew points of 68 to 71 degrees Fahrenheit across a broad swath of northeastern Oklahoma and southwestern Missouri. To put that in context, those are dew point values more typically associated with the peak of summer in the Deep South. Getting dew points that high this early in the season this far north is extremely unusual, and that moisture is the fuel for everything that follows. High dew points mean high CAPE, that is convective available, potential energy. And the modeled CAPE values for the bullseye zone tomorrow are running between 4,500 and 5,500 joules per kilogram. That is extraordinary. That is the kind of buoyancy that feeds violent, explosive thunderstorm updrafts that can reach 60,000 to 70,000 feet into the atmosphere in a matter of minutes. Now, pair that moisture and instability with the wind shear setup, and you start to understand why meteorologists are genuinely alarmed. The 0 to 1 kilometer storm relative helicity values, which measure the amount of horizontal spin in the lowest part of the atmosphere that can be tilted into the vertical by a rising thunderstorm updraft, are being modeled at 400 to 550 meters squared per second squared across the bullseye zone. Those values are in the range associated with intense, violent, long-track tornadoes. The 0 to 6 kilometer bulk wind shear is also exceptional, running at 60 to 70 knots. That amount of deep layer shear organizes thunderstorm updrafts and prevents them from raining themselves out, keeping supercells alive and rotating for hours at a time as they move across the landscape. And the final ingredient, the trigger, is going to be a sharply defined dry line that will be draped from roughly Ponca City, Oklahoma, down through McAllister and into far northeastern Texas. That dry line is going to be the ignition line. When storms fire along and east of it tomorrow afternoon, they are going to immediately tap into that extraordinary fuel and shear environment. And the expectation is that the first storms to fire will be discrete, isolated supercells, exactly the storm mode most favorable for tornadoes. They are not going to be part of a large, messy cluster. They are going to be classic Great Plains supercells, each with their own rotating updraft, each capable of producing significant tornadoes. These are the storms that tornado chasers drive hundreds of miles to intercept. And tomorrow, they're going to be driving right through the heart of a populated metro area. Let me walk you through the timing of tomorrow's severe weather in detail, because knowing when this threat peaks for your specific area could make all the difference. By noon local time, we expect to see the dry line becoming sharply defined across eastern Oklahoma. Cumulus towers will begin erupting along this boundary as surface temperatures climb into the low to mid-80s. The cap, the layer of warm air in the mid-levels that suppresses storm development until conditions are ripe, should begin to break down across northeastern Oklahoma first. Watch for the first storm towers to push past 30,000 feet. That is your first sign that initiation is imminent. Between 1 Gauss and 3 p.m., expect the first supercells to fire near the Tulsa area and into northeastern Oklahoma. These initial storms are going to be absolutely loaded. They're going to be producing very large hail right out of the gate. We are talking about hail in the 2 to 3 inch range. That is golf ball to baseball sized, with the very real possibility of isolated stones approaching 3.5 to 4 inches with the strongest updrafts. Tulsa, Broken Arrow, Owasso, if you're in the northeastern Oklahoma metro and you're outside between 1 and 4 p.m. tomorrow, you are putting yourself at serious risk just from the hail threat alone. And let me also talk about one more element of this storm that has not gotten nearly enough attention: the tornado threat, specifically for the city of Tulsa itself. Because Tulsa is a major metro area. We are talking about over 1 million people in the broader metro, with dense suburbs, highways, commercial corridors, and residential neighborhoods packed tightly together. And the way this storm is currently tracking, the primary supercell activity is going to be firing up in exactly the area southwest of Tulsa and moving northeast directly toward the city. I do not say this to cause panic. I say this because city residents sometimes feel a false sense of security. They think, well, tornadoes don't hit big cities. But that is simply not true. Tornadoes do not know the difference between a wheat field and a downtown office building. They have hit Dallas, they have hit Oklahoma City, they have hit Atlanta and Nashville and Chattanooga. A major tornado moving into the Tulsa metro tomorrow afternoon is not a low probability event given this setup. It is something that emergency managers in that city need to be actively preparing for as we speak. Between 3 and 6 p.m., this is the window I am most concerned about. This is when multiple supercells are going to be simultaneously active and moving northeast into the Joplin-Springfield corridor. The tornado threat peaks during this window. Storm motion is going to be fast. These cells are going to be moving at 40 to 50 miles per hour to the northeast. That means they cover ground quickly. A storm that is near Tulsa at 3 p.m. could be near Joplin by 5 p.m. If a tornado is on the ground with one of these cells, it could be traveling across the landscape for a very long time. Long-track tornadoes, the kind that stay on the ground for 30, 40, 50 miles or more, are entirely possible with this setup. Between 6 and 9 p.m., the primary supercell activity will be moving through the Springfield, Missouri area and into the Ozarks. The tornado threat will begin to diminish slightly as the boundary layer stabilizes after sunset. But do not let your guard down during this window. Some of the most violent tornadoes in history have occurred after sunset. The storm environment does not reset at 6 p.m. The atmosphere does not suddenly become safe because the sun goes down. In fact, the loss of daytime heating can sometimes cause storms to consolidate and concentrate their energy, creating one very powerful, long-lived supercell out of what was previously multiple smaller ones. If that happens tomorrow evening, that single dominant supercell could be extraordinarily dangerous. Into the overnight hours, the threat transitions toward a more linear squall line mode. By 10 p.m. to midnight, a large mesoscale convective system will be developing from St. Louis south through the Ozarks and into northern Arkansas. This brings a secondary hazard of widespread damaging winds. Gusts of 65 to 75 miles per hour are possible, with bow segments in the line, along with an ongoing flash flooding threat as training thunderstorms drop several inches of rain over the same areas that were already hit by supercells earlier in the evening. Now, I want to make sure we're also talking about the secondary threat zone because there are tens of millions of people in this area who also need to be paying close attention. As the squall line organizes overnight and pushes to the east, the severe weather threat extends well into the mid-Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley, and even portions of the Tennessee Valley and the Mid-South. Nashville, Memphis, Little Rock, St. Louis, Cape Girardeau, Paducah, all of these cities are going to be dealing with a significant severe weather threat in the late overnight into the early morning hours of the day after tomorrow. The tornado threat in this secondary zone is lower than what we are expecting in the bullseye zone tomorrow afternoon. But it is absolutely not zero. Embedded supercells and bow echo bookend structures within the squall line can produce brief but violent tornadoes. The terrifying thing about those events is they happen extremely fast with very little warning time, sometimes 2 minutes, sometimes less. And let's be real, a tornado at 2 in the morning when most people are asleep is one of the deadliest meteorological scenarios we know of. I want to give you some important context here. Studies of tornado fatalities in the United States consistently show that nighttime tornadoes kill at a significantly higher rate per event than daytime tornadoes. The reason is simple. People are asleep, warnings go unheard, and by the time someone realizes what is happening, it is already too late to get to shelter. The 2011 Groundhog Day tornadoes in the South, numerous overnight events across the Mid-South in recent decades, all of them share the same pattern. High fatality rates driven almost entirely by the simple fact that people were not awake and did not have working alert systems. Do not let that be you tomorrow night. Your warning systems have to be working. Your phone alerts have to be on. Wireless emergency alerts, the ones that make your phone scream, need to be enabled. If you live in the secondary threat zone, which runs from Little Rock northeast through Memphis, Nashville, and into the Louisville and Cincinnati areas, please do not go to sleep tomorrow night without setting up some kind of overnight alert system. A no AA weather radio on your nightstand could be the thing that gets you out of bed and into the interior of your home in time. Do not assume it is going to miss you. Do not assume the tornado sirens will wake you up if your windows are closed and you are in a deep sleep. Be your own early warning system. Preparation right now, not tomorrow morning, right now, is the most important thing you can do. Here is exactly what I need you to do today. First, if you live in the primary threat zone, northeastern Oklahoma, extreme southeastern Kansas, southwestern Missouri, northwestern Arkansas, and you live in a mobile home or a manufactured home, you need to make a plan to be somewhere else tomorrow afternoon. Period. I'm not being dramatic. A mobile home provides essentially no protection against a significant tornado. Even an EF1 tornado can push a mobile home off its foundation and kill everyone inside. If you have a brick and mortar structure, a school, a church, a neighbor's house, a community shelter, identify that location right now and commit to being there before 1 p.m. tomorrow. Second, download a reliable weather app if you do not already have one. I'm talking about an app that has audible tornado warning alerts. Make sure those notifications are enabled and turned all the way up. Your phone's Do Not Disturb settings can block emergency alerts depending on how they are configured. Go into your settings right now and make sure severe weather alerts can break through. This is genuinely a matter of life and death. Third, know your interior safe room and make sure everyone in your household knows it too. Lowest floor, interior room, no windows, bathroom, closet, hallway. If you have a basement, that is even better. Grab your shoes, grab your helmet if you have one, and get as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Flying debris is what kills people in tornadoes, not the wind pressure itself. The more barriers you have, the better your odds. Fourth, talk to your kids' schools if they are in the threat zone. Schools have shelter-in-place protocols, but parents deserve to know what those protocols are. Some schools have been known to dismiss early during severe weather days. If your child's school dismisses early and sends kids home on a school bus during an active tornado threat, that is one of the most dangerous scenarios imaginable. A school bus offers no protection from a tornado. Make sure your school has a clear shelter-in-place policy and that they will not be sending buses out if warnings are being issued. Now, I also want to give you a brief look ahead at the rest of the week because once this storm system moves through, the pattern does not immediately settle down. There is another short wave diving out of the Pacific Northwest that is going to round the base of the trough and create a secondary severe weather threat 2 days after the main event. This system is currently looking weaker than the primary one, but it still has the potential to produce scattered severe weather from the southern plains into the lower Mississippi Valley. We are talking about a marginal to slight risk at this point, mainly for large hail and damaging winds. The tornado threat with the secondary system looks much lower, but I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on the models over the next 24 to 36 hours. Behind that secondary system, we finally get a break. High pressure builds in from the northwest and brings much cooler, drier air across a wide portion of the central United States. Temperatures are going to drop significantly. We are talking about highs in the upper 50s to low 60s. For the plains and Midwest by the end of the week, down from the mid to upper 80s, we will be seeing ahead of tomorrow's storm. That temperature contrast alone will tell you everything you need to know about how dramatic the air mass change is going to be behind this cold front. When you can go from 86 degrees ahead of the front to 59 degrees behind it in the same day, that is an exceptionally powerful and dynamic weather system. And the severe weather it is going to produce tomorrow is a direct result of that extreme contrast. Guys, I genuinely hope every single person watching this takes what I am saying seriously. I have been doing this long enough to know the difference between a hyped-up forecast and a legitimate life-threatening event. This is the latter. This storm took a big turn overnight, and that turn brought it directly toward one of the most vulnerable corridors in the country at a time when the atmosphere is absolutely primed for destruction. Please share this video. I am asking you directly. Share it with your family in Oklahoma. Share it with your friends in Missouri. Share it with anyone you know who lives in the bullseye zone, because I guarantee most of them have not seen an updated forecast yet, and they still think this is a minor storm. They need to know it is not. They need to know that the forecast changed significantly, and that tomorrow is a day that demands full attention and full preparation. I will be monitoring this storm in real time, and I will absolutely be going live tomorrow as these storms develop. Make sure you are subscribed and have the bell notification turned on, so you get an alert the moment I go live. I want to be there with you in real time, watching this data, watching the radar, and walking you through every development as it happens. You can also follow me on X, Facebook, and Instagram at MaxVelocityWX for updates between now and the main event, and join the Discord. The link is in the description because that community is going to be sharing storm reports, photos, and real-time updates all day tomorrow. Stay weather aware, stay prepared, and I will see you in the next one.